Just a day after being sworn in as the country's new president, Sri Lanka's Ranil Wickremesinghe has now sworn in the island nation's new prime minister. Senior lawmaker Dinesh Gunawardena has been sworn in as Sri Lanka's new prime minister. Gunawardena is a veteran politician and former foreign minister who hails from one of Sri Lanka's most prominent political families. He was also President Wickremesinghe's classmate. Now, this came just hours after hundreds of riot police wielding batons and shields raided the presidential secretariat and a nearby protest camp, arresting at least 8 people. Video footage from the site showed soldiers armed with assault rifles storming the campsite. As daylight broke, dozens of troops marched through the area, dismantling the tents. Dozens of protesters were injured, including some journalists who were reportedly beaten by the security forces. Now, for more on this, joining us live is our correspondent Dasuni Atora. Hello to you, Dasuni. Now, Ranil Wickremesinghe has appointed Dinesh Gunawardena as Sri Lanka's next prime minister. We know the appointment comes at a time when the country is going through one of its worst economic crises. Do you think the new prime minister will be able to bring Sri Lanka out of this crisis?
Well, that is something we're yet to see, provided that he now has to garner the support and the confidence of the entire parliament following this appointment as well. And for months on end, we've seen this discussion of an all-party government that has been thrown around on multiple occasions. We've had the former president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who desperately attempted to form an all-party government, but it failed. So it will be interesting to see how the newly elected president, along with the newly appointed prime minister, will sort of work together, provided that politically they've been in opposing camps. Nevertheless, their childhood, they've been classmates, like you mentioned before, will come together and work together to form this all-party government. We are also anticipating the appointing of the new cabinet of ministers, which might be one of the first indicators to sort of see whether this new cabinet is in fact a fresh and new cabinet or just another shuffling of the deck, as we've seen in the past as well, Alison.
Absolutely. Now, the appointment comes a day after dozens of Sri Lankans protested against the president. What do you think is the course ahead? Are there more protests expected?
Well, as of right now, there are protests that are just sort of blooming in Colombo. There's one happening at the Fort railway station, where we are seeing crowds gathering at that location to sort of show their protest and dissent against what happened in the early hours of today, when the army sort of cleared one of the main protest sites in Colombo outside the presidential secretariat. So that's the latest. And surely what happened in the early hours of today will be imprinted in the people, especially those of the protesters who for months on end have been occupying that specific area and have largely been peaceful, which is why this action seems to be quite excessive in nature and is of a shock to people.
Dasuni, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest, and you will, of course, continue to track all the developments.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.